I'm Alex, I'm Managing Director of Mutant Labs. We're a company that's been around for a little while in the Plymouth scene. Some of you may know a bit about us, kind of where we've come from, where we've got to. Initially, I was going to do my talk this evening on the Media Innovation Network, which is something that I sit on the board of, and it's kind of a creative cluster that's based in Plymouth and kind of deals with creative companies in the southwest. But timing wasn't quite right for that, so instead I was asked to give a talk kind of in my experience as MD of Mutant Labs and kind of some of the stuff that we've been through. Imaginatively, I've titled my talk A Few Things I've Learned, and it's basically, I'm kind of getting to the stage now where we've been in business for 7 years, and being asked to do a talk now I thought was a great chance for me to reflect on some of the things that we've been through, and I guess give you guys a bit of an update on where we are as a company. So where did it all begin and who are we? We were students on the Digital Art and Technology course at Plymouth, IDAT, which I know there are a few people in the audience here. Yay. Okay, great. And we kind of followed a healthy tradition of startup companies coming out of this course in particular. And our company was founded by 5 graduates. So 5 of us were all working together in the final year on projects. When it came time to leave university, realised the jobs market was totally in the toilet. It was the middle of the recession, and for lack of a better idea, really, we decided to start a company, which I'm sure is how the best business plans are created, kind of on a whim. But this was the 5 of us as we began our company. Obviously, drinking in the office, standard Monday morning for a bunch of students going into business. I think this was actually at our first Christmas that we had a little glass of champagne in the office. But over time, our team grew a little bit, and we brought on some fresh meat or new people to the team. Tom joined in 2010, and in due course, we took on another member to bring us up to 7. And throughout most of the life of our company, we really sat around that 5 or 6 person team size. So one of the first things that I wanted to share that I've learned is that bigger is not necessarily always better. When you're starting a business and you're trying to make a go of it, you really want to keep costs low. And obviously, starting a company with 5 people means that you've suddenly got 5 times the overheads. You've got 5 salaries, desk space, every kind of outgoing in your business is multiplied by a factor of 5, which can make things very challenging, particularly as a startup company. There are going to be quiet times. You're not going to be stacked busy unless you're really, really good and lucky. You're not going to be really, really stacked with work all the time. So the situation that you get into is having these kind of big fixed overheads is that as soon as you have a quiet time, money is just kind of going out of the door. And the second thing that I want to share is don't take things personally. And this relates to specifically the 5 of us started a company together, and I think the point that we started, we were all in our early 20s, so maybe we were kind of 23, 24, I think would be about right. And in the 6 years that we were in business, it's inevitable that things are going to change. People are going to get interested in different stuff, want to explore other things. And it's quite important not to take that personally when people want to go off and do other things. And I pretty much guarantee that any startup with a group of friends who started out straight out of uni, at some point that kind of situation may change, and it's how you adapt to that. And I think that actually people going off and doing other things is a really useful catalyst, if you like, for thinking about where your business is, what you want to do, how you want to change and adapt and grow over time. So that's one thing that I also learned as well. And coming back to the previous point of bigger not being always better, we've actually experienced the kind of other end of the scale now, because our company started out as 5, and there's actually 2 of us running it now as owners and directors, and it's very interesting for us to see the kind of other end of the spectrum, really. And it's a lot easier to be efficient as a business, as a smaller team, and at the moment we do everything in-house, but when we get bigger projects in, we'll probably be starting to kind of scale the team, but in an elastic way, so using fixed-term contracts, freelancers, that kind of thing. And in due course, we may grow the team kind of organically as we had in the past. But it's very interesting. It's been really interesting for me, basically, to see going from maximum overheads straight out the gate. We need to find work for 5 people. We're trying to generate demand to meet the size of the team rather than adapting the size of the team to the demand that there is in the market. Which brings you nicely on to point number 3, know your market. So when we started our company, that was our offering. That was, our course was really diverse in everything that they taught us. Taught us programming, design. There was all sorts of random philosophy stuff chucked in there from, about how the digital age is going to revolutionize mankind and all of this stuff. Anyway, it left us with a really diverse skill set. And having the 5 of us in our team, there are benefits to having a big team, obviously, because we had, there was so much that we could do, but it was kind of quite hard to distill that to people in a meaningful way. So you kind of get to this thing where you say you do everything, and people kind of say, well, what is it that you actually do? The analogy I liken this to is when you go into a restaurant and you pick up a menu and there's like 100 things on the menu. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, surely they haven't got the ingredients to cook everything on here. And when was the last time they cooked like number 47 on the menu? And you get really concerned that they don't really know what they're doing. And I think over time this kind of sort of nagged away at me. And it came to the realization really that you want to be great at one or a couple of things. So this is where we kind of took the direction of our business. So we decided, right, rather than doing everything, although we can do everything else, general digital agency stuff, we started our company to get into games. That was our passion, that's what we're working on at university. So we thought, well, if we're offering game services to people, we're keeping our eye in, we're keeping our game skills up. And then the plan was to use that to fund development of our own games, because the long-term ambition of ours was to productize, be able to sell a product that makes money in the background and makes us all wildly rich, having seen App Store successes of various other companies. The thing that we didn't really count on, this is where the know your market thing comes from, is that the game services industry is incredibly challenging. It's really difficult. And part of that boils down to the fact that there's not much local work. I think games inherently are rather like frivolous expenditure, so therefore big brands, they are for companies that have a marketing campaign where they want to chuck a load of money towards a game to engage with potentially a younger audience. There wasn't a huge amount of work locally, so that meant that we were actually searching up the country in Bristol, London, doing work in the US just to win contracts, and that means it's quite expensive to actually get work. In spite of that, we managed to work with some really cool brands, biggest of which probably was Cartoon Network in the US, which was really cool. So, it wasn't all doom and gloom, but it was actually really hard work to kind of foster these relationships and actually turn it into something that was worth something. And this in turn meant that the dream of funding our own games was very difficult, because we were, that effort to fund ourselves was built on a kind of not shaky foundation, but one where, we were just constantly kind of treading water, if you like, to ensure there were enough projects coming in from these places all around the world. And it kind of comes back to that as well, it's all tied in. Basically being a big team with large fixed overheads meant that, and in a challenging market as well, it was quite tough. In spite of that, we did actually manage to fund some of our own games, which was great. Some of these took advantage of various grant funding. So if you're in the games industry, grant funding is like a godsend, because it allows you to work on your own stuff, which is really cool. And some of these we funded ourselves with our own kind of our own money. Did we make a huge amount of money off these products? Not really. We've got a lot of exposure though. Again, all of these are in the mobile space, which is a really tough market for releasing apps. You get millions and millions of apps, and exposure is really tough. So for smaller companies, where you're competing with the big guys who are spending maybe $1 million a day on advertising their games on the App Store, it's kind of hard to compete. But they were very useful exercises for us as a business. Point number 4, get your message right. And some of these might seem really obvious, but for me it's kind of, on looking back, it's actually seeing how the course of our business has kind of adapted following these rules, if you like. So one thing that happened with myself and my business partner Chris kind of taking over control of the company and being just the two of us, was we got a chance to reflect on where we wanted to take the business and actually how we wanted to present ourselves to the world. One thing that we realized is that we really had the skills in the kind of everything mess of before. We had the skills for providing general digital agency work. So we actually decided to split our brand in two. So we have the labs, which deals with all the game stuff. But the thing that we've realized is that we really want to be focusing on our own intellectual property. So the lab side sits there mainly as a means to get funding and get investment in our own ideas and try and develop those as best we can. Still doing some services work in games as well, but a lot of the focus now is on Mutant Creative, which is the other kind of sister brand of our company, which is animation, web and branding. And it's been, having been sort of focusing on games for many years, it's been really interesting that despite this being a challenging market, there are a lot of people obviously working in the general digital agency space. There is quite a lot of local work, and it's been great for us to kind of re-engage with the local community, foster relationships with businesses there. And it essentially means that the kind of, because there's such a tighter catchment area for where you can find work, it's kind of a little bit easier. And also the other thing is variety of job sizes. So we've found that in games you're kind of pitching on whole projects or nothing. And I think with general digital agency work, there's lots of opportunities for small amounts of graphic design, animation, development that doesn't necessarily span a whole project, and these smaller little things that you get are actually really good for cash flow and just keeping your business ticking over while you've got downtime in big projects where you're waiting for feedback, for example. You get some nice little projects just to tide you over while you're having a bit of a rest. I think ultimately you want to try and avoid the question mark, and that's what we've basically tried to do with our kind of positioning now. We've kind of gone from that over 6 to 7 years to that, which basically I think sets us up really well for the future, and we're kind of quite excited about where we go next. And that's kind of our company, and that is the talk. There you go. I've actually gone past our slide. If you wanted to check out some of what we've been doing, there we go. There's our websites and various handles and stuff. How am I doing for time? I've got 2 minutes 48, so I was a bit under time. But yeah, I'd be really interested to field any questions from people. I'll be hanging around at the bar if you want to chat about your experiences running a business, or if you've never run one before and you want to know a bit more about stuff that we've kind of done or been through, or want some advice, that's fine as well. So I guess I open the floor to questions from people.
I wonder if you felt like over the past 7 years whether the amount of workload has increased or not?
Well, sorry, the question was whether the workload has increased.
Whether there's more stuff available locally, do you feel like the demand is growing? Or?
Yeah, I would definitely, and I think, hold on, here we go. I was just going to put that down because I don't need it anymore. I think so, yeah. I think the general sort of creative industries here is kind of quite rapidly developing, and I think just to set you up nicely, Hannah, the council is doing some really interesting stuff as well, and I think it's great that kind of leading figures in that industry are starting to take the initiative to really invest in that kind of stuff. I know that when we started, there were not a lot of companies doing what we did. There was maybe like a couple of other startups that had come before us that were kind of operating, doing cool interactive stuff or games. And so like even tonight is a really good demonstration that there is like a real passion there, and there are people who are really interested in doing stuff. So yeah, and obviously us being more in this market now where we were a little less before with the games, because right at the beginning when we were doing everything, we were kind of in this market, but we were just getting that message across badly. But comparing the two from the everything to the now, maybe it's a combination of our messaging being a bit better, but we're actually finding that, yeah, there is a lot of work around. And yeah, it's kind of nice to be super busy. Yeah. Anybody else? Oh, there you go.
Did you have much help when you first set up your startup? Did you have external, like the uni help you? Did council help?
The uni did help us in that they were running Formation Zone, which is a kind of incubation space for startup businesses. So we went straight in there. I think we finished our exams in like end of May, and then beginning of July we were kind of in there taking a few desks. So there was that kind of support. There wasn't direct financial intervention from anyone, and I think it can be quite a hard sell basically if you're just some people who come out of uni and you're just like, yeah, we want to start a business, and they're like, well, we don't really know if you're serious, so we don't want to give you any money just yet. But there was basically a lot of people willing to give time and advice, which is also really useful.
That was the basis of my point. Was there much guidance that you got from external people? Was there anything that...
Yeah, there was guidance from people who'd started businesses before off our course, which was really, really useful. And I think that a lot of the guidance that you might get online and stuff can be a bit... there's nothing better than basically sitting down with somebody and cutting through all the noise and the rubbish, and them just saying, like, look, this is how it is. You need to focus on that. Don't worry about that. That will sort itself out. You kind of get someone who's been through it and kind of relate personal experience. So, and that's kind of why us and I know other businesses like Elixir and stuff are always keen to give their time for people, because we've had that in turn when we started out. So it's good to keep that, keep the ecosystem going, really. There you go.